Alright, so we have the last type of epithelium remaining to be dealt with, and that is specialized epithelium. Specialized epithelium. Specialized epithelium consists of those epithelium that are specialized to perform special functions. And what are those epithelium? We have 4 types of specialized epithelium to be dealt with. Those are your ciliated epithelium, which we have already done in the chapter of cuboidal epithelium and columnar epithelium. This is done. You have your germinal epithelium. This as well has already been done in the chapter of simple cuboidal epithelium. So we can tick mark that as well. Then there's your third type of specialized epithelium, that is your sensory epithelium. And there's your fourth type of specialized epithelium, which is your glandular epithelium. These 2 types are yet to be done. Among these 2, today we will be dealing with glandular epithelium. Glandular epithelium is going to be our topic for today. So glandular epithelium is nothing but modified cuboidal epithelium. So it consists of cuboidal cells that are modified. Modified to do what exactly? They are modified for secretion. So these are secretory cells. Where is this glandular epithelium found? It says in the name itself. This epithelium is found in your glands. Okay, so today we will be dealing with the types of glands. There are various types of glands, and they are: number first, on the basis of number of cells, you have unicellular gland. Uni means one, cellular means containing a cell. So unicellular gland consists of one cell. And multicellular gland. Multi means many. So this gland consists of multiple cells. Example of unicellular gland is your goblet gland, which can also be called goblet cell since it's composed of just one single cell. And example of multiple cellular glands, there are many. I'll just write one example, that's your liver. Okay. Secondly, on the basis of type of secretion, that is, what type of secretion does that particular gland secrete? You have 3 types. Number 1 is your serous gland. Number 2 is your mucous gland. And number 3 is your sebaceous gland. Sebaceous. Serous gland are those glands that have watery secretion. Mucous glands are those glands that secrete mucin or mucus secretion. And sebaceous glands have oily secretion. Examples of each: serous gland, parotid salivary gland is a serous gland whose secretion consists of water plus enzyme ptyalin. So serous glands have serous secretion, which is watery secretion, which consists protein in them. That's your mucous gland or goblet cell for mucous gland. Then for sebaceous gland, you have oil glands that have oily secretion. There's your third type on the there's your next type, that is on the basis of mode of secretion. So we talked about the type of secretion, now mode of secretion. That is how that particular type of secretion is secreted. You have number 1, holocrine gland. Number 2, merocrine gland. And number 3, apocrine gland. holocrine consists of the part holo. So it means that whole cell of that particular gland ruptures or gets destroyed when it secretes its secretion. For example, your oil gland. When oil gland secretes sebum or its oily secretion, the whole of its cell gets destroyed or ruptured along with the secretion. Merocrine gland, the secretion is done by the process of diffusion. So the cell of the gland is not affected. For example, your sweat gland and your salivary gland. Here the sweat gland is not always merocrine. Sometimes it can be apocrine. Apex. So only the tip of cell ruptures during secretion. Example, sweat gland, but majority of sweat gland or sweat gland found all over your body are merocrine. So if the question is sweat gland is, it's a merocrine gland. But if the question is sweat gland at your armpit and groin region, then that's your apocrine gland. This you need to remember. As well as your mammary gland. The tip of the cells rupture along with the secretion of milk. Okay, then on the basis of presence or absence of duct, you have exocrine gland, you have endocrine gland, and heterocrine gland. Exocrine gland, they secrete their secretion into ducts. So they have duct and their secretion is known as enzyme. Endocrine gland, they are ductless. They secrete their secretion directly into the bloodstream and their secretion is known as hormone. On the other hand, heterocrine gland is a mixture of both exocrine and endocrine gland. That means it contains of some parts which are exocrine in nature and some parts which are endocrine in nature. Hetero means mixture, so it's a mixture of exocrine gland and endocrine gland. Example of exocrine gland, there's your salivary gland, that is exocrine, right? There's your liver, which is exocrine. Endocrine gland, there are a lot of examples to be studied in the chapter of endocrinology. So let's take few examples. Hypothalamus, right? Similarly, your thyroid gland. And heterocrine gland, there are two to be remembered. You have pancreas. So in pancreas, the majority part is exocrine and it secretes your pancreatic juices, and minority part is endocrine, which secretes hormones. Hormones such as insulin, your glucagon, and then there's gonads as well. So these two examples you need to remember as heterocrine glands because they have both exocrine and endocrine parts. Then there's your glands on the basis of shape. So the gland can either be tube-like in shape, called tubular gland, or sac-like in shape, called saccular gland, or alveoli-like in shape, which also consists of its own sac, right? Alveolar sac. So alveolar gland or acinar gland. How do they look? This is what they look like. So here's the gland. As you can see, it looks like a tube. And there are your special cells or special secretory cells forming the glandular epithelium surrounding the tubular gland. Similarly, here's your saccular gland, which is sac-like. And the gland is surrounded by your glandular epithelium, which consists of spatial secretory cells. On the basis of shape, these are the two major types. They have more subtypes, and that we will be dealing in next video. Okay, so that's your different types of glands. Did I just write glands there? It's glands. Okay, types of glands on the basis of various criteria. What are they? Number one, you have unicellular gland and multicellular gland on the basis of number of cell, where unicellular gland consists of one cell and multicellular gland consists of multiple cell. Goblet cell is a unicellular gland, while your liver is a multicellular gland. On the basis of type of secretion, you have serous gland, which has watery secretion, for example, parotid gland, which is a salivary gland. Your mucous gland, which secretes mucin or mucus, for example, goblet cells, and then your sebaceous gland, which has oily secretion, for example, your oil gland. Similarly, on the basis of mode of secretion, how that particular type of secretion is secreted, you have three types. Holocrine gland, where the whole cell of the gland ruptures along with the secretion, for example, your oil gland. Mitocrine gland, where the secretion is secreted by diffusion, example, sweat gland and salivary gland. And then finally, apocrine gland, where only the tip of the cell ruptures during the secretion by the gland. For example, your sweat gland, but not just any sweat gland. The sweat gland part is sweat gland found in your armpit region and groin region. Also, your mammary gland is an apocrine gland. Then, on the basis of whether duct is found or not, you have three types. Exocrine gland, where duct is found and the secretion is enzyme, for example, your salivary gland. And then there's your endocrine gland, where duct is not found, so it's ductless, and the secretion is hormone, for example, your thyroid gland. Similarly, there's your heterocrine gland, which is a mixture of exocrine and endocrine gland, for example, pancreas and gonads. And finally, on the basis of shape, you have tubular gland and saccular gland, where the tubular glands are tube-like in structure and your saccular glands are sac-like in structures. All right, in the next video, we'll be dealing with different types of glands. See you there.